Good morning, everyone, from Dunrovin Ranch in Lolo, Montana. It is a snowy, cold, wintry morning in Lolo, and I am sure as we invite our wonderful guest, Brandon Carpenter from the Hash Knife Ranch in central Montana, that it is even colder and windier where you are. Is that not right, Brandon?
Well, it's been colder than you guys. I've been watching your temperatures over there too, and it's been difficult. The one thing that we have not had that much of is the wind for the wind chill. I think we had the other morning we had 30 below ambient and about a 6 mile an hour wind, and you'll have an upcoming video on that.
Yeah.
And it was a struggle. We had some challenges going on here with the tractor, and I lost some sleep. Let's put it that way. Hoping it was over a long period of time. So yeah, that weather's caused some issues. It's
yeah, well, I hope you did take some videos and are going to help us go along with you, because this is one of the really important features of ranching. Ranchers don't get to pick their weather. The weather's picked for them. And regardless of what is happening, the animals have to be cared for. I mean, that's just the bottom line, day in and day out. And so, and your machinery almost always breaks during the winter, during the worst part of winter. You can count on that.
Yeah. It's never a convenient time for it to break down, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm going to ask you a question before we get going, Brandon, and that's about calving. A lot of ranchers time their calving towards the end of February, and that can be a really dicey time. When do you time your calving?
Well, and you're right, but a lot of them also time it during January. And, they're trying to get theoretically the most amount of months of growth on a calf that they can. And we found long ago that if we calve in the middle of March, at the beginning of our calving starts, I try to target somewhere around the 15th of March, that we beat most of the weather, most of the brutal weather. Or if it's going to be cold, it's only a day or two that we're, scrambling to try to keep calves alive instead of, 2 months. And hopefully they make it. And, for those that are calving early like that, it's a real struggle, because that cow is doing nothing but consuming feed just to make milk, to get a calf to survive. There's really not that much extra growth on that animal, with a normal winter. We've had an extremely open winter up until this last 10 days ago. And so if we wait a little bit longer, the warmer weather helps keep those calves alive. We don't frostbite ears and tails as much. It can still happen. We've got some evidence of that. And then the green grass is not that far away, where that cow will start to really not lose weight, but then they'll maintain from the time we start until the green grass hits, and then they really start to flourish and go ahead and get a fast gain on them. We call it a gain again. With that calf at their side, and really not lose a lot of weight on our cows. I mean, that's those cows supports a calf, and it takes a lot of energy to do that, and it takes some life out of them. So later's better for us, and our calves are, I go into the sale, and my calves are still averaging 575, 600 pounds. I've had some, I think this last year the steers were, a group on the higher end was like 602, something like that on the average weight. So that's still a respectable weight for a calf, and not hurting a cow by 2 extra months.
Yeah, there's a lot to go into this. You really have to think it through. The phenology of the grass, the weather, the time of the sale, everything. It's such a complicated process, and I really appreciate your sharing that with us, Brandon. But today, I am really excited because I have hooked you up with our great tech guru, James, who, by the way, is handy in almost all things. He is like a ranch kid. I don't know. He grew up in Seeley Lake. I think his father was an electrician, but he had the same kind of work ethic. He got out there and did it when it had to be done. And James certainly has that. And as both of you know, I have been wanting to train Oggy to pull, to drive, as kind of hit the first part of his training, and we kind of hatched up this idea of making a stone sled So we could use Oggy to help feed the animals with instead of a stone sled, a hay sled. So I understand that you sent over some backside of napkins with some drawings. Is that right?
With a lot of coffee stains on them. So, yes.
That's great. So at this point, I'm going to hand over the show to you, to James and you. I think James has been cogitating on your backside of the napkin to get the materials together. So, James, if you wouldn't mind coming in.
Yeah, howdy, everybody. I received some drawings from Brandon. In the industry, we commonly refer to it as chicken scratch. And so we've got to make sense of all of that. And I'm going to go ahead and show you the first page that we've got here. I just need to make sure that I get that set up properly. I'll switch the video so you guys can see that here. So on this first page, we've got kind of the stone boat framework or skeleton of this. And Brandon, maybe if you don't mind kind of walking us through the concept of the design here. This is the simple part in my mind. But yeah, go ahead and tell us why this is configured the way it is.
Yeah, this brilliantly put together sketch is freehand by me. And really to let people know what this is, all we're building is a very low level, with very little clearance, sleigh or sled. It's you're going to have a flat top on it. And you'll see the beams are going to be made so that this just kind of sets up together. And we'll put some slick stuff underneath. You can see the beam, the circle with the hole in the bottom of it is just a hole through 3. And I've said consider 2x8s or 2x10s that sit upright, and we'll just kind of probably lag screw or heavy screw them together to laminate them. And then you set them up on their end, and then we put some 2x4 cross pieces on there, and then lay a piece of plywood or OSB board on top of that. It's a very, very crude sled, and a stone boat is just that, what it sounds like. It's a conveyance that is pulled by either a single or even a pair of horses or mules, and rocks, large size rocks, kind of if it's between the size of a cantaloupe and an antelope, you would throw those on the stone boat to clear fields and drag them off to the side when farmers were planting and first doing it in this country. Now, in some of the areas there are a lot of rocks that keep coming to the surface continually because of frost heaves. And that's just something that they dealt with. Now there are automated rock pickers, but this also helps as a tool to teach a horse to pull. And the way this is built with these, you've got basically 6, probably 2x8s. I guess you'll probably use 2x10s are just going to put you up off the ground a little more, but with that height comes some side-to-side load instability where it could break off, and that's where we're going to have to either way make some good solid connections there. But you can teach a horse to pull this. If they run away with it and tear it up, you really haven't lost that much, and you can probably rebuild what you've got, because it's going to be stout. There's no doubt about it. It's strong, and you may not even have to use 3 of these. You could probably skimp down and use 2 of them so that it's only about 3 inches wide instead of about 4.5 inches wide. But I like to kind of overbuild things so that you're not tearing it apart and having to rebuild, and then you're dealing with a weaker piece. But that's really all you're looking at. And then some of these, and you'll see the very point of it. I think after I sent this, I called James and said, hey, there's a couple of things we probably want to change on this, and we'll kind of talk about that. But then on the back side of my napkin here, I had a kind of a side view. On the very bottom is a side view of the shafts, and you call it SHAFT, but it's pronounced shav, like SHAV, shavs. It's just because we can't speak well. Same way we call Panniers, Panniers, is pronounced Panyard, Panyard. So, there's all kinds of... So if you see shaft and I say shav, it's not because I have a speech impediment. It's just because that's when we talk. So what you're looking at here in the very top here, and it is basically a representation of a 1-inch long pipe that's about 10 inches long overall. And you'll see where I have the 3 inches marked out, I've got just a small, say a 3/16 of an inch piece of rolled steel that is kind of like just a bracket that can be welded onto the side of it, or on the probably a better spot even is on the bottom, and that is called I've heard it called a footman's loop, or it's basically the loop that hooks into your britchin, which is basically it's a leather thing that goes around the hind end of a horse or mule or oxen, and that is what will be attached to this. It will be slightly behind them, so it'll put pressure on them so that you have a brake that will keep that whole stone boat or sleigh or buggy or whatever you got got them hooked up to. When they stop, it puts pressure on that britchin and it pushes against their hind end and it stops. If you didn't have that, the whole thing could come right up underneath of their legs and you'd have a wreck. And you see the connection point on the front is the same thing. That hooks in right about where the short tug and actually in this case it'd be a shaft loop is what it's called. The shaft will go through a loop on the side of the harness, and then you can attach it right there. And they also we'll have to go over some more of the harness later, but this is what it would look like from the side. And one of the things we may need to do is where it says there's a 1/2-inch bolt that goes through there. This was based on an 1.5 inch size shaft, and James questioned me about it, and rightly so, because 1.5 inch is a heavy. That's a lot of tubing, or even if it's welded pipe. I like to use some welded pipe or welded tubing. It looks like pipe, but it's really not heavy built like that. So we'll probably end up having, we're going to have some welding done on this. It's probably a good idea to weld a good-sized tab out on this and put the hole through that. Otherwise, it'll weaken this a lot when we go to bolt that up to the stone boat. And these will be able to pivot at that point where it says a 1/2 inch bolt hole. We'll be able to pivot those down so they drop down, or you can pick them up, and then we will have a ability for the animal to back up to that, like Oggy, and then we'll just lay those either if they're on the ground and he's really good about standing there, we'll pick him up, put him through the whole front of this through the shaft loops, and then we'll hook up the britchin to your footman's loop on the back, and we will have him basically hooked up to it. But then we're going to have to connect a piece that I don't have drawn on here. Actually, James has got he and I were communicating a little bit over that, and I sent him some pictures of one of our buggies, and we'll have to put a piece across right above the spot where it says bolt there. If you look straight up about that position on the shaft, then we're going to have to put something across that to bind that together, probably weld it, a piece of flat box steel, and then put on top of that another piece of steel that will basically can move around or flop around like a propeller would. And on each end of that, you put your connections to your harness, and that those are called traces. And that's what really you pull with, are the traces on your harness. That's what pulls it. The shafts kind of keep everything in place. And you'll notice the shafts it looks like I've kind of drawn those crooked on the front end of those on the top too. And they are. That's purposeful so that the front of that does not stick into the side of the animal. There's a little bit of movement there. And so it doesn't jab them when they turn, because they will turn into these. And we'll teach Oggy how to step sideways a little bit. They learn how that they're contained and they still need to turn to the right or left, but they'll have to kind of take their foot placement and cross them, just as we've taught him how to cross his feet on the ground that Ashley's been teaching him how to do that. This is where this comes in handy at this point too, not just for turning and reining, but also for pulling with shafts on either side of him. So that's kind of the gross morphology of it, and it's pretty low tech, pretty simple, and but it's if you don't do it right, wrecks can happen. But of course, I'll be safely in my office watching all this as it occurs.
Yeah, so I think the lumber construction and everything is fairly straightforward for me. We do have a guy that was here. He was our winter ranch hand a couple of years ago. His name is James Garland, and he's a welder. And we've enlisted him for several welding projects around here. And I'm going to bring him in and help with this, and we might even go over to his shop and do some video over there while he's working away. But I have a feeling we'll probably need to have a little bit of a discussion on the shafts so we can get that sorted out. Because I want to make sure, I mean, we're talking about some pretty heavy steel here, and we want to bend it in the right way so we're not, doing it more than just about once, and trying to get that dialed in.
Yeah, no, that'd be a great idea to do that. And there's, like I say, my chicken scratching is exactly right. There's a couple of things that need to be improved on that for strength because we're reducing the size. And like you pointed out, we don't want to make it any heavier than we have to, but we don't want to make it so light that it's just going to break. And, we've played with some of this stuff before, how to build something that's going to last, yet at the same time, not overbuild it so it's a burden on the animal. You're not able to do what you want, and then you're not rebuilding it all the time either. So one of the things we'll have to do, and it depends on you guys, how many pieces you want to laminate on the bottom for your draw. Trying to think of the best word. The rails, I guess, is putting a little piece of plastic or nylon or something on the bottom of that rail will really reduce the frictional coefficient so that it's easier to pull. But that's why it's so important to have the brakes on there with that britching too. But this will be really fun, and it's a good tool. I play with this. I got a chariot that I built a number of years ago, and I use it. I haven't built a stone boat, but build a chariot with a single, and then you can go from shafts to put a tongue on there and pull a pair. So, and I think you guys have got some harness for the little guys, but you don't have anything for Oggy size. So what we're going to do is we're going to improvise a little bit, and we're going to kind of poor boy this. And there's nothing wrong with it. We're not putting this in a show parade. We're not going to pull a float with it, but we're going to have to build take a couple of lighter ropes to build traces. Big deal. They're not going to hurt anything to do that. It doesn't have to be leather or chain traces like you would on a normal harness, and we're not going to have a collar on it. This is light or reasonably light, as long as it's on snow, so we won't have to have a collar and some hames, to go on to. And what we're going to do is we're going to improvise with I think you got a Decker pack saddle, right?
Yes, we do have a Decker pack saddle. And I also wanted to comment on your concept of putting something on the runners. I have a dog sled here that I used in Alaska, and it has Teflon strips on the bottom. And I tell you, that sled will move with almost no pull. I mean, it's incredible. So, it might be that we want to get some Teflon, that we could put on the bottom there, because it just completely minimizes the friction.
Yeah, you can almost pull it on dirt, right?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, seriously, I was amazed, and I've used both kinds of sleds. Birch, they use birch because it is so tough. It is really a nice, tough wood. But when you put the Teflon on the bottom of the runners, as opposed to just the birch, even when it's nicely sanded and waxed like a cross-country ski, that Teflon makes all the difference.
Yeah, and they use Teflon runners for snowmobile tracks, and we might be able to, I might check out a snowmobile shop, see if they have some that might be damaged or able to be repurposed on the cheap, we might be able to get some Teflon runners from a local shop in that regard. So definitely worth trying to make that happen.
Absolutely, yeah. And this stone boat is different than a bobsled. Now, bobsled, you would actually have like skis on it. The back two would be stationary, and the front two would be on a bolster where they would both move up and down, you know, on the front, and then they would be able to turn as well. So this is a little different than that. One of the things that's an advantage to this and having some real friction instead of having some lining on the rubber is if the horse takes off, they can there's no effort for them to continue to take off. Where if you've got a drag on there, you can put some weight on there and hold your weight if you're man enough to ride this thing, and then make them pull with some friction and slow them down, wear them out a little bit, and say, oh, you know, this is a lot of effort. I don't know as I really need to do this at all. So I think we're going to be okay with Oggy. We're going to do some moving with some very large shafts. And they're not going to be shafts. They're actually going to be some poles we're going to place on him. And that's going to happen here fairly shortly. If we can get a saddle on him and start doing some of this and putting the bit in his mouth, then we're well on our way to being able to hook this up, hook him up to the saddle. And then the last thing we do is hook this stone boat up and off to the races. Figuratively, we are.
Yeah, so real quick, I'll just show a couple pictures. We've turned our shop into a bit of our dance hall into a shop. So let's see here if I can get things situated here tech-wise. So this is our lumber pile. I am using 2x8s for the rails, and I've got 2x4s for the cross bracing, and then we also have some metal brackets for the part underneath the 2x4s that allow that to kind of be more rigid in space. So we should be pretty good there. I do have some heavy duty screws and fasteners for all of that. And then I just this morning moved our chop saw into the dance hall. So we're going to see if we can make a mess in here and get things sorted out and have some fun in there. So that should be a good time. But yeah, I think we're just about ready to go with all of that. And I will be connecting you with our welder. We'll do a conference call and make sure we get the design on those sheds pretty soon and get started on that as well. So I would say I can get the wood construction part done probably in the next week or two. I don't know how soon you're going to be wanting to start to attach some of these mechanisms. So just let me know if we need to accelerate our schedule. But
well, I think if we're in the next couple of weeks, you would have plenty of time. We're going to pretty soon, actually, it doesn't seem like it right now, but we're going to run out of winter. And so I really want to put this to some use, before we do that. So we're going to have to probably accelerate a little bit more on Oggy and get him. He's packed a saddle, I think probably a time or two now. I didn't talk to Ashley this weekend, but we got to put a bit in his mouth and start driving him a little bit and put a saddle on him. And once he's comfortable with that saddle, then we need to start putting that pack saddle on him and just having him packing that around with the britchin and the breast collar on him. And once he's done that, pulled some shafts around, we can start putting him right in front of that thing and just go slow.
This is going to be fun.
Well, that's the concept anyway, and you can always have bad things happen that, he spook or scare, and we don't want to do that. But I think James has got a couple of weeks anyway before we can really hook him up realistically. So, and we'll try to accelerate that a little bit and more concentrate on just getting just that aspect of it done, where we've got a lot of time under that pack saddle and dragging some things behind him to, so he doesn't spook, just desensitizing him, and then that's it. And then I think it'll be kind of fun that first time we pull that stone boat. We'll probably have Ashley sitting on a hay bale, something for her to sit on and get ready. And I think it'll hopefully be really non-eventful, but yet really satisfying.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Oggy's got the right personality. He's kind of laid back anyway. I think he's going to do just fine.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Well.
So I think we've got Ashley ready out there with Oggy, so we can get started on some training. But yeah, I think we'll get started on construction. I'll be taking some video as we get started on all that and share that. Maybe next week I can share a few updates. Kind of progress reports as we move along here. But yeah, I think we're ready to implement the plan here.
That sounds good. Yeah, this is just it's a rough conveyance. We're not going to put any finishing on this. There's going to be no varnish, nothing like that. It's just utilitarian, and it'll get scarred up, it'll get scratched up, and that's okay. That's what it's about. It's a training aid.
Yeah. Wonderful. So
awesome. Well, I will kick this over to Ashley, and we will get moving right along here. So,
all right.
Thanks, Suzanne and Brandon. We'll say hello to Ashley here in just a second.
Well, thank you, guys. Good morning, Ashley.
Hi. Good morning.
You can hear me, all right?
Yeah. Are you able to hear me? Okay.
Yes. Sounds like you've got
a little bit muffled.
Yeah, got a little face sweater going on there, like me.
Yeah, I got a little face covering on here. I was just out of town for the weekend, so I figured I'd wear a mask. But it's also cold, so I can take it off. I've been running around a couple laps with Oggy just to get us both warmed up, so we're ready to go.
All right. Have you got the headstall with a bit warmed up?
I have the bit in my pocket warmed up. I do need to go grab the headstall, so let me go do that real quick. And,
yeah, we'll need to attach that, and a little bit of we need that grain, a little bit of grain for him to eat. A good amount, probably a couple of two or three double handfuls of grain, because we're going to teach him how to hold that bit for himself. And I'll just kind of talk through.
Quite a few scoops in there. We should be okay.
Okay, good. Yeah, what we're going to do, the concept here is, it's cold. And so we're going to be putting a piece of steel in his mouth. And I don't necessarily like to have cold stuff go in a horse's mouth. I like to warm that up in my hands, or, I'll take there's a lot of times I'll have a couple of bridles hanging up in my house, overnight, so that when I go out the next day, and especially in the fall or early winter, it can be pretty cold out, and I'll keep my hand around those things, and I'll keep them warm so that when I stick them in their mouth, they are not anticipating something really nasty cold. And most of us has probably put our tongue on some metal in the wintertime as a prank. And, it's really no different for them. We don't want them to not want that in their mouth. So keep it warm. And then
I was sitting in my house all weekend, and then I've got it in my sweatshirt pocket closest to my body right now, so it should be nice and warm.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be 80 degrees, but certainly so it's not super cold when it goes into their mouth. But so what we will do is we're going to put this in his mouth, and it's going to be, who knows how he's going to react, whether he's going to kind of fight you a little bit or not. But we want to put it in, and then normally we do not have a horse hold that bit initially where I like to hold it, and I like to hold it so it's just at the edge of their mouth, and we'll explain that at a later time. But we are trying to prevent them from putting their tongue over the top of the bit. We want that bit to lay on top of their tongue, so their tongue goes under it and stays there, and they get comfortable doing that. Now, the reason we're going to do this with feed, and I've said before that I don't use feed as a reward or to train, except for a very few things that I use it as a training aid. One of them is to, once they crawl in a trailer for us, a small 2-horse trailer especially, I will reward them with a little bit of grain to kind of drop their anxiety and let them chew on that, let them think about it. The other thing is, just like this, with this grain, we will force him, well, we're not going to force him, but we're sure going to entice him because we know he likes grain. So we're going to put that bit in his mouth, and we're going to pull it up fairly tight, and we're going to put a wrinkle or two in behind his mouth, and then, or in the corners of his mouth, and then we're going to give him grain. It's very, very difficult for that horse to eat grain with that bit underneath their tongue. Their tongue has to go under it in order for them to really effectively eat very well. So that's why we're going to use that. So let's go ahead and put the bit on the headstall if you've got it, or if you can hook it up quick, and then we'll and if you need to put the halter around his neck just to hold him in place, that's great. Just do that. Don't worry about
Probably.
Trying to get this in his mouth, because he's probably going to fight you. You may have to hold him back a little bit.
Okay.
So Brandon, can I cut in here?
Yes, absolutely, please.
In working with Ashley, I selected a Mylar bit, which has the guard between the two pieces on the side, so it won't pinch. I have a preference for Mylar bits. And I thought this would be a good one to start with. Can you confirm?
And it looks like a ring snaffle to me.
It is.
Yep, perfect. That's exactly. I think we talked about this a little bit between Ashley and I. So this is, you and I, it sounds like we're right on exactly the same page.
Great.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of shanks on a bit anyway, because of the additional leverage that you can put on them. So, I finish with a snaffle with direct rein pressure. The training should be in their noggin, not in their mouth. And it's just a difference of philosophy. I mean, I've known other trainers that will declare when you take a horse's bit off or headstall and hang it on the wall, you're hanging their brains on the wall. And it's like, yeah. I mean, that's just a philosophical difference. And I was like, I kind of disagree with that, but okay. So Ashley's gonna put this bit in his mouth, and this is gonna be some easy work for her, because we're gonna let him do all of the work. Yeah,
he's gonna check out the bucket.
He knows what's in there, so
he knows.
This is kind of a sucker thing for him. And I like to also put a curb strap on a snaffle. You might, let's see how that fits. Yeah, you might have to get behind his ear a little bit and bring his head down. There you go. And now drop that. And this may not be the easiest thing for you, because if you push that into his mouth, he may just keep backing up on you.
He just is interested in the bucket.
Yeah.
Come on. You gotta work. Then we can get bucket. Good boy.
Ooh. There you go. So I would slip that with your left hand, just like you're doing. Slip that bit, or the whole head deal. Just put it all the way up under his chin. There you go. Now reach with your. There you go. There, you're making some headway.
Good boy. All right, so he's got it on top of his tongue.
Okay, so go ahead and put that headstall on. Don't waste any time, because if he pulls his head through there, he's gonna spit the bit. Just like that. Yeah. There you go.
Still in there.
And we're gonna teach him to bring his head down for this. He's kind of flopping all over the place. Ooh, you all right?
Yeah, it's all right.
Okay.
Just very slippery snow.
Yeah. Okay. So let's make sure now you've got your. Take a look at the bit on both sides of his mouth, and make sure you've got a wrinkle or two in there. Now, by doing this, because we're putting it in this tight, we may, if you spend a lot of time doing this, you may put a couple of raw spots on there. It's possible. And we're not going to worry about it. It's not going to hurt him. It would just be like putting a little bit of a rub spot on us. So how's he look? If that's centered, is it got a wrinkle on both sides of his mouth, or two wrinkles?
Yeah, there's definitely a wrinkle on both sides. He's got really fuzzy lips. It's kind of hard to tell. But
yeah,
he's definitely got a wrinkle.
Really watch to make sure that his tongue is under that bit.
Yeah, it's under there.
Okay, so do your throat latch up. Go ahead and put that in there. Tighten him up. And if there's any doubt that tongue is going over the top of the bit, then let's tighten that headstall up a little bit more.
Okay.
We definitely don't want him to have a comfortable feeling with his tongue over the bit. We want that bit resting on top of his tongue.
That's good. Yeah, I'm kind of just holding it up just the slightest bit.
Okay, if you have to hold it up, then go ahead and tighten it up. Let's pick it up a little bit more because we're going to be letting go of him, and you're just going to stand back and watch him and observe. And I don't know if we can get him turned where we can see the camera really well. I doubt it because this is pretty hard to see him and where that bit is at on his tongue. It's hard enough where you're at to do that sometimes.
Yeah. Okay, so that is the tightest that the headstall will go. The throat latch still has a couple more.
Okay, and it's pulling up pretty tight in his mouth.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we got a couple wrinkles.
Okay, and then we just want to verify that his tongue is down underneath the bit.
Yep.
All right, let's feed him. Let's take his halter off and let him have a bunch of grain. And I think what he'll do is he'll figure out that he can eat grain with this, because these horses need to be able to eat, drink, and do everything else with this bit in their mouth. And yeah, I was going to say he's probably going to try to rub it off if he can. But verify again, and it's so critical that you keep watching that face and making sure that tongue is under the bit.
Come here, let me see your tongue. Yep, right underneath.
Okay, so just let him have the bucket. Just stand back and let him eat. We're doing really well. If he hasn't really tried to replace that or pull that tongue back, and this is all we're trying to do is keep that bit further back on his tongue, so it's hard for him to put that tongue anywhere else other than where you've placed it by putting the bit on top of it. And this is really kind of a critical, well, it is a critical spot. If we get a horse that's very comfortable having that bit over or underneath the tongue, that's kind of a tough deal. It's you don't have any control initially, and it just doesn't. You can't communicate very well through the bit when you're riding later on. So this is really, really important. One of the things I do like about hackamore or bitless is that you don't deal with any of this, but you still got to get the training in their head first. And some people start with a hackamore. Other people, like myself, I like a bit. Yeah, I let him throw his head around and he'll dribble a bunch of this feed out. But anyway, I like to start with a bit, have positive control, and then later on I can ride him with just a halter and a lead rope thrown over it. I've had to do that out of necessity, and just it works. It's getting what you can add. There you go. Now he's going to start fighting it a little bit, so kind of keep an eye on him. Make sure that he keeps that tongue under the bit, and if he gets it underneath, you may just stick your finger back up in there and pull that bit up manually. Putting your finger in his mouth when it's this cold, it's not a problem. It's a problem when you pull it out.
Yeah.
How cold is it, Ashley? Is it pretty brutal?
Like 12 degrees, I think.
Oh, geez, that's warm. We didn't even get that high yesterday.
It's tropical.
I think we got up to about 8 below yesterday.
I was in Denver over the weekend, and I don't think it got above 3 degrees. And I think the low last night when I was at the airport was negative 10.
I got a picture I can show you. I took on the car, the vehicle. It was just east of the ranch, and I think that would have been Friday. It was an even 40 below ambient temp.
Oh no!
Yeah. There we go. How's he doing? He started to chew a little bit more normally.
He's chewing. He's foaming at the mouth a lot.
Yep.
It's just all kinds of stuff in there. Yeah.
Now, I think he's doing pretty well. I haven't seen him. He's tossed his head a few times, which is normal. Now, the purpose of that curb strap that you've got behind his chin is really, a lot of people, especially English riding, they will not use a curb strap, or some people call it a chin strap, but a curb behind the mouth like that, or the chin. That's just the style of riding. What you'll find is, especially on our colts like this, it is very difficult without one to hold that bit in place. A lot of times you'll drag that bit through their mouth back and forth because we put a little bit more pressure on and teaching them to rein. So I like to have that curb in there even as they're trained, because it stabilizes that bit in one place. And then that way, when you just pick up a rein on one side or the other with your fingers, that bit is stable and they can feel the communication in their mouth, and it makes it for a lot lighter mouth on that horse. So yeah, he's doing great. Look at that. There's some contentment.
Yeah, I've noticed definitely riding some of the older horses that we have, you just give them one little soft little tug, maybe just like move your fingers a little bit, and they're turning. Yes.
Yep. And part of that's the stability. Part of that is that, you know, they're so used to having that bit where it's supposed to be and it's placed properly. You're not fighting them at all. So what we can do now is go ahead, and I think he's doing pretty well. Has he gotten most of the grain eaten?
I've still got quite a bit in here too.
Okay, good. Let's you didn't have a saddle out there, did you?
I don't have it out here with me, but I do have the pack saddle in the tack room.
Oh, you want to do the pack saddle? How many times has it been saddled?
I think 3 times.
Okay. You know what?
We did
and
2
he had no issues. Yeah, there's no issues with that at all, right?
Mm-mm.
All right, let's do this. Let's go ahead and throw that halter over the top of the bridle. Nothing wrong with that at all. Yeah, so he's going to start trying to. This is normal. So if we put that halter over the top of the bridle and you walk away from it, because you're kind of being able to control him a little bit, that will prevent him from being able to rub that bridle off or get rid of it or readjust it much. It just kind of has a kind of a barrier effect. And he's going to throw it. There you go. He's going to throw a little bit of that grain out.
Okay, still on top.
Awesome. Like that. Good. If you've ever had a horse and you train long enough, it's going to happen. You'll get one that insists on having their tongue over the top of that bit. And I'll tell you, it's not fun trying to fix that. That's can be an issue that is very difficult to stop or to reverse, especially when you get comfortable with it, because we're like they are. You know, we start to feel something that's comfortable to us. We want to maintain that. So, all right, yeah, just go grab a pad and a pack saddle, and we're going to talk about how to saddle that up and how to adjust. And all the while, what we're really doing is acclimating him to this bit, and at the same time, we're going to be saddling, doing some more of that kind of work. So this is really good use of time. So you're double dipping on your duty there. Yeah, he's rubbing on his leg, going, "Hey, this thing's got to come out of my mouth somehow. This isn't normal."
Yeah, and I left the bucket out there for him, so there he goes.
Yep. Well, absolutely. Yeah, we'll let him chew. Let him get very, very comfortable eating. And again, I'm kind of cheating, and this is one of the only times this and trailering, and I'm not teaching him to trailer. I'm just reducing his anxiety when he's in a trailer. But right now, I'm using feed to train him, but I'm not training behavior necessarily. I'm just training for comfort for him, and so that he gets used to having that. And we're just kind of beating him at his own game a little bit.
I watched your deworming video when you give the little filly some grain afterwards.
Oh yeah.
And when I did the deworming a couple weeks ago, everyone got a little piece of carrot right after.
Yeah, it helps. It helps wash that. Take that bad medicine down.
Yeah. Okay. This guy's pretty heavy.
Yeah, Decker pack saddles are a well-built saddle. They're a great, super utility. I mean, I've used them in ways that they weren't necessarily, you wouldn't think of using them, but honestly, I have not used one as a replacement for a harness for pulling anything. So this is really kind of going to be kind of a new and neat deal. And again, we're just improvising, and we're going to, as I said to Suzanne and James earlier, we're going to kind of poor boy this thing, but it's still going to work. The principle is the same. So it's not a big deal. It's something to get used to, and for him to get used to. And this is much more, I think, robust than a light harness would be for him. So if he has a wreck or something with this stone boat, we're not going to tear things up like we would necessarily with a light harness, because we're not going to be putting a collar or hames. And a hames are the pieces that come around a collar around their neck, and usually you see those that they stick up and have a couple of brass balls on the top of them, or like you see your Clydesdales. You know, the Budweiser Clydesdales have a really nice fancy collar with hames that come up into a single point. And there's as many different ways to harness a horse. There are all kinds of different harness. It's not all the same. There are different types, different styles, different ways for your holdback straps. I mean, it's crazy. If I saw some, I'd have to look at it and go, oh, okay, I got to figure this out, you know? So there's a lot of different ways to do it. Yeah, look at that. He is unconcerned.
Happy as a clam.
What I see from here is that Ashley is using a regular riding pad for this, not a pack pad, which is not a problem because we're not putting weight on the horse. A pack pad would hang down slightly longer on either side. I'm just pointing that out just for, not a big deal.
Well, that's good to know.
Yep. We're not going to worry about that. A regular pack pad is a lot longer, basically hangs down on the sides than it does further along their back. But this works just fine. It's not an issue.
Right.
Oh, look at that. Look at that mouth. Yeah, okay, so it
looks like there's like guacamole coming out of his mouth. It's kind of gross.
Yep, he's got a little grass or hay from this morning then. Okay, so we want to look and make sure there is a front and the back to that.
Yeah, I found I don't know what it's called, the britchin.
Yes.
I think that's this part in the back. And then the cinch is on the right side here.
I see the back pad. So yeah, go ahead. And usually you can just put it all up, all your harness parts, your britchin, put it up between the bows or the D's, the two metal parts. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and your cinch up there. And you can see that you can just pick it all up and set it. There you go. Yes, you're not have to swing a whole bunch of stuff over. And the same thing, you'll do the same thing with a harness. Set it in place. And let's grab him and hold him. And you've got what you're looking there. The canvas part is called a half breed, which covers the entire portion of the bars of the saddle itself, and it allows the harness to lay over the top, or all your what we call rigging on this.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'd go ahead and get him and hold him in hand. Ashley, he's going to just wander around on you. So grab a halter lead.
He's like, this is too much today. Boy, come on.
Now you've dropped a saddle off of his side a number of times and tarps, and still he reacts because, oh my God, this is something new. This could kill me outright.
Ooh.
And with this, what you'll do is when you put that in place and you got your half breed and everything laying flat, and I saw that was curled up on the other side, which is kind of normal. That happens. When you do that, then we'll just pull your cinch down first and just tighten your cinch up. And you probably on this, you shouldn't necessarily have a buckle on there. So you're going to have to put in a kind of go through the rigging a couple of times and the cinch, and then we'll just tie it off with the cinch rigging. There we go.
Okay. You're okay. No, that's fine. Go backwards.
And for those that have not done this and are watching, there's a lot of straps on a rigging on a pack saddle.
Yeah.
And they get tangled up, and it's kind of a pain sometimes.
Ooh. Good boy. Okay, there's the cinch. This is what got caught underneath it. Or no, this is in the front.
That should be your breast collar right there, looks like.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I just don't want anything to get caught. Ooh. Ooh.
Yeah, this is him. If you put him up against the rail maybe and keep him from moving, this is the same issue with whether you're saddling a pack saddle or a riding saddle. They've got to stand still for you. There you go. I think you're going to have some success now.
It's too cold for this today.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Come on. Come on. Ooh. Ooh. Good boy. I need one more arm.
Yep, you always do. That's a fact. Can you tie him up?
I didn't know that was an option. Heck yeah.
That would, tie him so that you can, if he starts to pull back on that or tries to take off, we're not going to collapse our corral and cause a bigger wreck. There you go.
Check out this out again. Right side.
Yep, there you go. Looks like you got the right direction. You're a trooper, hanging in there.
Good boy.
There you go. And that fits those bars just exactly like it does on a regular riding saddle. That you can. The thing about this is you can move the rigging around a little bit so that you can have a full rigging or 7/8 or 3/4 or center fire. You can adjust all of that stuff up. And we're not going to do any major adjustments on there.
You're fine.
Because we're not going to be using it as a pack saddle, but I find it fits best at about a 3/4 rigging.
Okay, so
you got your cinch. Where's your cinch at?
right here. Is it supposed to be farther to the back?
Looks like
It's right here in the middle. Okay.
Okay, there you go. Yep. Now see, it's at about 3/4. So pull your pack saddle a little bit forward. Yeah, that should be a little bit closer to his girth. It might be, you're looking more like a center fire there, and it's going to make your whole saddle go forward. But yeah, let's go ahead and put that together right like that. Now you see how your latigo on that side is hooked up to your rigging? Do the same thing on your other side. It's not going to have, you probably have double rings on your cinch.
Yeah.
Okay.
So through one and then through the inside and then the outside the inside.
No, just ignore that. Yeah, that smaller. Just ignore the smaller one for now on your other side. But then you just run your latigo through that a couple of times and through your rigging that's across that piece of wood board is called a pack board. There you go. Looks like that ring is at about the right spot. So just run your latigo through that a couple of times and then tie it off like your other side. And we don't have to be super tight again because we just want to hold it on him. And I'm watching his mouth while this is going on, by the way, and he's just kind of content. He's not chewing on that bit too much. He's just kind of hanging there. So that's good. Yeah. So just go through those.
Distracted by what else is going on.
Yeah, well, and that's part of the reason why we're doing all of this at once too, because I want him to be a little distracted with the eating, and then with the saddling, because then the more comfortable he gets with that in his mouth, the better off. So go ahead and go through one more time, I think.
It's not super tight at all.
Nope. And go ahead and then just gently pick it up so it's a little bit snug, because we definitely don't want this to turn on him. And then we'll just run that through that ring and around, just like the other one was. Kind of it's not really a packer's knot, but it just kind of comes around each side and back down. Flattens out that entire rigging where the knot is.
Okay.
Very good. Now, and this is going to be just a makeshift, again, harness for us to start pulling and doing some driving work with him.
Okay. Oh, you're so handsome.
Okay. Nice and snug. Can go ahead and reach up and grab the D's or the bows, the metal things on top, and just see how far you can pull that.
Not very far off.
Perfect. Okay, we're tight enough then. So now just grab the britchin and gently, let's go ahead and unhook him from the fence, because if he's to spook, we don't want him pulling that thing over. And he shouldn't, because we've been doing some work on him, wrapping things around his hind end. Okay. Oh, sorry. Let's grab the halter, because you're going to want to hang on to him. The halter rope.
Oh, just take him off the fence.
Yeah, just take him off the fence, but because you're going to want to hold him and keep him in hand. Yes, that way he doesn't pull that off, because we're going to, once you get that halter rope on, then we're going to just put the britchin over his hind end. And right now I'm not going to get wild about, naming parts and the anatomy of a pack saddle. We can do that at a later time, but we just want to just slip that over his hind end, let it fall. And there's kind of a figure 8 piece shaped thing there. You got it in your hand. That is called the back pad. And that's going to ride right between the top of his hip and his tail. There you go. And then the britchin goes right down. Go ahead. Yeah, you're pushing it. Let it fall. Good job. Good job.
Boy.
Not bad. And it looks like everything's laying flat. Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple straps up here that are a little loose, but
yeah. Well, and those are your. I guess we'll probably talk about that as we do it. Those are the loin straps or back straps. And how tight is the britchin on him, on his hind end?
It's right up against his hind end.
Yeah, so it's a little bit tight. I'm okay with that as a training purpose. What you would do is you would make a fist and then get the thumb portion of your fist and the little finger portion of your fist and be able to put that between your britchin and his hind end. It should drop down a little bit. So we're going to eventually take those carrier straps, and that's the two on either side that are going up to your back pad, and we're going to lengthen those. That's a quarter strap there. So come on back, keep coming back. See the two that are coming from the top of the back pad? Between his tail there, those are carrier straps. We're going to need to lengthen those out so that where the bottom of the britchin rides right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to want the top of that britchin to come down a little bit below, about where your hand is at. So put your hand on his hind, right about there. Yep. So come down with your hand there. Right. We want that to ride right about there, just kind of under the curve of his hind end.
Ooh.
And this is pretty tight
so
on
just
him.
Under the curve, like down here.
Yeah, there you go.
Boy.
About halfway down his entire leg. Yeah. So, and then that'll give a little bit more room. But all four of those carrier straps, you got two on either side. Those need to be lengthened at some point, so it's there. But this is okay for the time being, because the point of this is to make sure that he pulls on that stone boat, and when he pulls and then stops, it's going to continue to slide, and it's going to put pressure on that hind end. So if you grab that strap that's in front of you there, that's a quarter strap to the left, right down, right there. Now pull on that and tighten that up on his hind end.
Oh,
there
yeah.
you go. Yeah. And
He's like,
normally
"What the
we would have his tail over the top of that britchin as well.
Oof.
And then you'll see the back pad, as you drop that down, that back pad should slip out there a little bit and go further down. So on the other side, you've got his breast collar.
Yep.
Okay. So that breast collar's got to come around to the ring on the front and snap. It should snap into the ring that's hanging there.
Ooh. Good boy.
And that's what we're going to be using to pull with, is that breast collar, basically. That's going to pull on that stone boat with all the forward motion. Okay. Got it?
Yeah, this side just needs to be tightened up a bit.
How does it look? That's
It's uneven. It's a little shorter on the right side.
Yeah, it's a little bit uneven. It's a tiny bit low. So we'll have to pull that up. So those are some things that we're gonna deal with later. Right now, let's go ahead and there's another strap on the back on the front of your britchin.
This hanging one?
Yep, the hanging one. So it's probably got a snap on it.
Yep.
So unsnap that, and then that snaps into the ring on your cinch. And that's also called a quarter strap. So there you go down and hook right into the ring on your cinch.
Right.
Let's see, where have you got? Is that okay? Yeah, that ring, that cinch did come up a bunch, didn't it? Yep. All right. So now your horse is basically got his pack saddle and ready to go. So this is what we're going to be using instead of a harness. We're going to just use this pack saddle as a makeshift harness, and not a big deal. It's going to be a light harness because there's no collar or anything that he can really push into. Mm-hmm. But you can see how
and
it's
there's not
even
going to be a whole lot of weight on the sled.
No. Well, no, not really. And especially with the rails, the way that James is going to make them, we're going to put maybe some Teflon on the bottom, or at least something, some composite plastic, something to make it a whole lot slicker. That's why this britchin on his hind end has to be very tolerable. How's he looking on his bit?
Still on top.
Nice. Let's give him a little bite to eat. We'll give him a little something to do. And how are your fingers holding out?
They're okay.
Okay. So let's go ahead, since we've got that, he's got it completely saddled now. We're ready to go. We're going to give him a little bite to eat. Let's go ahead and adjust our pack saddle. Are those Conway buckles on your quarter straps and your carrier straps?
Yeah, I'd rather do that in the tack room.
Yeah, do that in the tack room then. Okay, we'll not worry about that. If there's a buckle that you can adjust that's a buckle and not a Conway buckle, a buckle with a tongue in it, then we can do that. But I kind of have a feeling that everything you got has got Conway buckles on it.
The only one is the quarter strap. Both of them. They both have buckles. So
yeah, and you really can't adjust your quarter strap really well until your back straps and quarter straps or your carrier straps are put into place. Then you can adjust your quarter straps up. But you see how our britchin has to kind of come down. You'll notice the back pad, that figure 8 kind of pad. That's gotta be right between the top of his hip and the dock of his tail. That's where you want that to ride. And you could maybe you can't even out the breast collar on that because that's
Conway buckles.
Yeah, those are all Conway buckles, or some people call them harness buckles. They are the strongest and best buckle you can use if you don't want anything to break. So this is really good. Now, I think what we can do. He's eating. He's holding that bit where we want. That's beautiful. This is better than I hoped for him on his bitting issue. So you give him a little bit to eat. Let's go ahead and take the lead rope off of him. Leave the halter on, and then take the bucket out. And let's just have him walk around a little bit. Just kind of free drive him around that corral a little bit, so he's used to that harness or pack saddle, the britchin, riding on him and
get it moving around.
Feeling that tightness. I'm glad it's a little tight on him. This is good. And so that he can feel that, because we want him to not move and not spook when that sleigh starts to move or that stone boat starts to move. and he stops and it pushes into him because it's going to have some significant weight. You're going to have it. We'll probably have a bale of hay on there for you to sit on the first time so it doesn't slide around a lot, and then you can sit on it, and he'll be pulling you around hopefully a little bit around the arena.
Wouldn't that be so cool? Good boy.
Yeah, he's completely unconcerned. He's looking more about where he can get another bite of grain.
Yep. Good boy.
Now, as he turns, of course, this breast collar and the britchin will certainly get a little tighter on him, so he's going to feel a little different. Yep, not a problem. I see he's a little humpbacked, but it's cold, and he's feeling that tighten up on him as he turns. But geez, that's not a problem. I like what he's doing. Very good. Very good. And then once you get him turned both directions, let's speed him up a little bit and just have him trot just a little bit.
Good boy.
Good. Very good.
Good job.
Nice. Nice. All right. What we'll do, just as kind of a little foreshadowing for next time, is good.
Good boy.
Very good. Is we will we'll drive him, and we'll put some reins on your bit, and we're gonna have to get some distance between you and him, but we'll just slowly drive him around, and you're gonna be walking behind him, maybe off to the side, but you're gonna be pulling him with a direct rein and doing some figure eights and some stops, some backs and things like that, so we can control him. And then if he does very well with that, which I suspect he will, because we might work quite a bit on it, then we're going to put some poles. We're going to put two poles together, and we're going to lay it around the top of the front of that front D, let them hang down, and then he can pull them behind him, and they're going to need to be about 10 foot long apiece.
Okay.
And we might tie the ends of them up so they don't just scatter around. At first, we'll pull them without anything that is going to bind against him, but he'll be able to push that around, and he'll feel it as he turns. And we may have to get him out of this small round curl to do that, which is no big deal. But it's going to be kind of a tricky part because we're giving James a couple of weeks to get this stone boat together. So we've come a long way on the bidding today. I'm really liking that, but we still have to be able to control him, and we'll do that next time. And then maybe if he does really well, we'll hook a couple of poles onto him that he can drag around while you're driving him. I think that's a lot. That's pretty ambitious, and we may not get there, but that's eventually where we're going to get. And then once he's doing that comfortably, then we're going to be able to hook him up to a stone boat and see if we can't drive him around and get him to stop and turn and have some fun with it.
How exciting. Yeah, I definitely want to help James put the stone boat together so I know what all the pieces are and what's going on. So hopefully we can. If we work together, we can get it done a little quicker.
Right. Well,
hopefully.
We're going to, and we got some help, it sounds like, from one of the guys that was there last year, and he does some metal work. So I think we're gonna conference call and do some things and fine tune it a little bit so that we don't break it or have a setback. We want it to be done right, but we got to have him prepped perfectly so that we reduce any chance of him, spooking, or because he can hurt himself and we can hurt you and he can hurt anything and tear things up, and that's not what we want to do in a training scenario. So would you do me a favor and go up to his quarter strap and just pull on that, just tug on that thing, and see if he'll stand there for it. You might want to get a hold of him so he doesn't take off forward, but we'll say, I like that. He didn't. Not too bad. Okay. Good, because like I said before, I've never used a pack saddle as a training aid to start harness work, but hey, this is going to work just fine. And it's going to keep us from having to buy a harness. Eventually, you would probably want to do a harness on something that's going to be maybe a little heavier pull, things like that. Something that's got a collar on it, maybe. I'm just a fan of collars. I just like the look of them.
Yeah, they look so nice.
Yeah, well, and it serves a better purpose. You can really pull into a collar that's got a couple of traces on it. So what we're going to need to also do in the future here is, have you got a piece of light rope, like maybe 1/4 inch or 3/8 inch twisted nylon, really light
I'm sure we do.
Okay, we're going to need that thing because we're going to go. I put a couple of snaps on the end of it so that they'll snap into his rings on his bit. And now we're skipping a bunch of stuff here that we haven't done to prep him to turn, but we're not going to be getting on his back right away. We'll have to go. We can go back and do that, but we're going to, as we said to Suzanne and James, we're going to, believe it or not, be running out of winter here pretty quick. So
I know.
We're going to accelerate this part. We're going to go back then and then have him handle a little bit better on turning. And we'll see how this goes this next time with driving him. If we have to, then we're going to just have to turn him a lot more on the ground to get him to understand. But I think he might be okay.
Okay.
All right. So I think, you've been out there a long time. You've been doing good. He's doing good. The bit is not an issue for him at this point. We'll leave this at this tension in his mouth. In order to take it off, I would drop it down, 2 or 3 notches just to take it out of his mouth and put it on, and then tighten it up next time again as well. And then we'll before we start driving him, then we'll take the pressure off. As long as he is keeping that bit on top of his tongue and his tongue in place, then we'll be good that way.
All right.
So we're going to need that. We're also going to need to build some traces, which are just going to be a couple of pieces of rope instead of long leather straps that are going to go from where the pack saddle cinch hooks on. There's that ring there on your pack board. We're going to basically be hooking up kind of to that point or to a D. Yeah. We're going to be coming down through that with a shaft loop. This thing is going to be cobbled together, not like you would normally do. So it's going to be goofy, but we'll make it work. And then we're just going to have to get some straps that put onto it. And if not straps, then just some light rope, and hopefully we can make it work. So I think you've done a lot today. Yeah, I think go ahead and unsaddle him, and I'll help you do that so that you can keep things straight. Okay. So the first thing you normally do is take that breast collar and unsnap it, and then everything is laid in between the D's of your saddle.
Okay.
Okay.
So
now go ahead. What I would do is go on your other side, and you can do the rest of this from the other side. So don't take that cinch off yet. Okay. So take your breast collar or your breechin and pick it up over his hind end. Yep. And then put all of that back pad with your carrier straps and your loin straps. That's all called a spider, all in one piece. So you've got everything laid in between there, right?
In between the D's?
Yep, right between your D's. Now take your breast collar and just lay it over his neck. Over the top of his neck. There you go. Now go to the other side and then take your cinch and undo it from your latigo. And then tie your latigo up, and we want this to stay on his back. We don't want to drop it off or have him move the minimal, because this is all we're going to do is we're going to set this saddle up for you so it's a lot easier to put on, and you're not fighting with all your breast collar and your spider and your breechin. So go ahead and just drop your cinch. There you go. Put your latigo up and put it through your ring a couple of times. Tighten it. I think you guys probably just do that like you do your normal, like your guys' riding saddles.
Ooh, Okay.
All right. Now go on your other side and take your cinch and throw it up in between your D's as well when you're done with that.
Good boy.
Lay it right up between your D's. There you go. Now make sure stay on that side and make sure that your britchin is down in between your D's. We'll just lay it right down in there.
Okay.
Nice and flat. Now take your breast collar and go through your D, your front D. Right underneath the middle of it. Now pull it over the top of the rest of all your rigging that's laying in between it and out your back D. And just pull that tight.
All right.
There. Sweet. Now you got everything pulled down, laid down, and it's not going anywhere. So now your pack saddle's put away properly. So you can just pick that up by a D now, and everything will stay in place. And this will help now that you know where your which one's your front D and which one's your back D, because you've played with it a little bit. So if you just grab that by that front D and pull it off of there like it's a saddle horn or the gullet, look at that. It's all in place, and you got nothing falling down. Very good. Awesome. There we go. Okay. All right, Ashley. Now I just have you take that, drop his bit in his mouth a little bit and take it right out, as long as he's still got his tongue underneath of it. And good God, we've had a good, successful day.
He has got his tongue underneath it.
Nice. Nice and calm about it. I like that.
So should I loosen up the headstall?
Yes, I would loosen that up 2 or 3 holes, just so it's nice and easy to come on and off. So you're not really pinching his ears when it goes on or jamming it in his mouth. Yeah. And we need to work on him putting his head down for you to holding it down to put that bridle on.
Okay. All right, that's pretty loose. And then we'll undo the throat latch.
Yep. And then just slip it right down over. Yeah, see how he's going to play with it because it's not comfortable, but that's okay. We're gonna get to there at a little later date. There you go.
Good boy. Good. All right. You can do it.
And good job. Good job for you making him put that head down for you. Very good. Better.
It's coming off. It's coming off.
And I would just slip that one ear at a time. Just doesn't matter. But he has got to hold that head down for you.
Yeah.
Because he's being a puss head, or we're going to cause ourselves more. Boy. Same issue as with him, moving around when we're saddling. Yeah. He needs to learn to stand.
Ooh. Yeah, good boy.
There we go.
Oh, this beautiful blonde hair in the way. It's coming off. You're going to like this part. This is the best part.
Yeah, we got to get him over that. That's unacceptable. You got to bang you in the face. There you go, and just let it fall out of his mouth. There we go. Very good. Good job.
We'll redo that. Was that so bad? Oh, there you go. Good job. Okay, well, that was fun today.
All right. Well, good job. And I guess we'll probably see you next Monday.
For sure.
All right. Thank you, Ashley. Right. Good job. Really good job today. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Have a good day.
You too.